Okay, today, guys, we are visiting the house of Octavius Quartio in Pompeii. The house is typical of the dwellings favoured by the Pompeian elite shortly before the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, and reflects and simplifies the architectural and decorative styles of the great villas of the Bay of Naples. You enter the house through a cast of the entrance door, which leads to a modest atrium which unusually has two levels of decoration, the lower of which shows scenes from the Trojan War, and the upper one depicts the adventures of Hercules. The house is arranged into two residential areas at different levels, both characterized by two artificial water channels called Europae, which run at right angles to each other. The upper Euripus is decorated with the statues of the Muses and small Egyptian-style sculptures. It ends in a small grotto-style triclinium with a fountain, decorated on one side with a depiction of Narcissus, while the other side we see Pyramus and Thisbe, two characters from Babylonian mythology made famous by the Roman writer Ovid. So here we are, you can see the front of the house. To the left you can see where a shop would be, and we're going to enter through the fauces, the entrance hall. You can see how high the front doors of the house would have been. There's a person for scale there, so it looks like it's probably about 4 meters high, those front doors. And you can see that there's a step up here, although the nice people at Pompeii have put a ramp in so that wheelchair users and people with limited mobility can get into the house. So there we go, there's the door frame. If we look up, and you can see the lintel and the major doorposts that would have supported that lintel. And then we're going to cross the threshold and go into the fauces. So we pass through this narrow entrance hall, and we're going to come into the atrium, which, as we know, is the main public-facing room of the house. Remember, when clients or businessmen come to visit the master of the house, they are going to spend time in the atrium whilst they wait to see the master, and therefore this is quite an important room. So we're just going to dip to the right-hand side here. Remember that there are rooms leading off the atrium, including bedrooms. So we're going to go along here. You can see in the middle of this atrium, we've got the impluvium, which catches the rainwater. If you imagine that this building was obviously roofed over originally, if you'd have looked up, you'd have seen the compluvium, which is the hole in the roof where the water comes in. You can see here the height of the building would have been about 2 stories. Now, focusing on the impluvium here, you can see it's got a load of kind of herbs growing around the outside of it. I don't think those would have been there originally. They've just grown up subsequently, but you can see the depth of this impluvium, and you can see that it had a fountain in the middle of it. So this is a very impressive feature. You can also see how the water drains away into a tank underneath the impluvium, which is then used elsewhere in the house. And we'll see that in a moment. Now, here's the threshold into one of the bedrooms. You can see the sockets for where the hinges were on the doors. And now, looking into the room, you can see the lovely red and yellow artwork around the room. Here is an illustration of some of the Trojan War scenes. There's individual figures basically from the myth. This is the winter dining room, which also has scenes from the Trojan War displayed on the walls. Now, moving through into the rear part of the house, this is where the magic happens. This is the summer triclinium. You can see that it's got this canal sunk into the floor, which would have been full of water originally, and that leads over to the dining area with that shrine at the far end of it. On the left-hand side of that, there is an illustration of Narcissus, and on the right-hand side, it's Pyramus and Thisbe. In front of this, you can see the benches where the diners would have reclined. There are only 2 rather than 3 benches. The shrine takes up the 3rd side. Now we look down the garden, which is at a lower level. Here's one of the pergolas, which is protected by a modern structure. And then you can see there would have been a waterfall here down into the garden area. Here's where a fountain would have sprayed water, and another pergola feature. And then we can look back along the full length of the garden. You get an idea of the scale with Vesuvius in the background. Thanks for watching, folks. Hope that's really useful to you with your revision. And if it is, please do consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment, which really helps out the channel. Thanks very much. See you again soon.